Awesome. Glad everyone could show up today. We got a really fun one today. Setting standards, high quality service every time. This is going to be a game changer for a lot of you. So make sure to have a piece of paper and a pen. Have a piece of paper and a pen. Research is showing write stuff down in your own handwriting. You're 70% more likely to remember the information 30 days from now, and that's the goal. All right, let's get started, shall we? Well, welcome to the Wednesday webinar, Wednesday Restaurant Growth Webinar. Every Wednesday, we get together here with the Restaurant Growth team, the webinar team, and we usually do a high level, kind of a framework, a theory, some tools, something to kind of get you unstuck and get you going in the right direction. Now, these webinar series are really, really powerful, and they give you some really great high-level ideas. Now, if you want to take this stuff to the next level, you definitely want to talk to one of the team members about getting into some coaching, because coaching gives you those tools and accountability that the webinar is not going to hold you to. But that being said, you're going to get some gold nuggets out today. All right, so start off with a quote. Like always, all business problems are people problems. All those people problems are communication problems. I would say restaurant success isn't rocket science. It's just people science. And when you figure out that people problems and communication problems are 99% of the problems, it's pretty easy to figure out. So if you're the first time here in the webinar with me, let's go over the rules real quick. Number one, have some fun. Number two, again, take notes. Research has shown if you write stuff down in your own handwriting, you are 70% more likely to remember information, and that's important. And then rule number three, take action. If you don't apply what you've learned, then you haven't really learned anything. Remember, knowledge is not power. Application of the knowledge is power. And then every once in a while during my presentations, you hear me say those famous words, hashtag WTSD. What does that mean? It means write this shit down. Those are the gold nuggets. Those are the things I really want you to take away from today and apply and actually put into action. If we've never met before, I am Donald Burns. I am the restaurant coach. I am a former restaurant owner, a consultant to big, multiple, billion-dollar food service brands like Cisco Foods, US Foods, Shamrock Foods. I'm also a chef. I was a chef when I had my own restaurants. I was a chef with Wolfgang Puck. I'm also an author, most well-known for the restaurant, Your Restaurant Sucks trilogy. My latest book out there, Savage Restaurant Success, all on Amazon available. I'm also a restaurant investor, former member of the U.S. Air Force pararescue teams. And when I started my very first restaurant in 1995, I was like a lot of restaurant owners. I felt that just because I had restaurant experience, that was all I needed to open a restaurant and be very, very successful. I quickly learned that was not the case. And running a restaurant and building a profitable brand are two different skill sets. I learned that the hard way. And I was very, very fortunate that a businessman who was a regular at my restaurant came by, and then one night he said he wanted to have a talk with me. And he asked me a simple question. He asked me, he goes, Donald, if I gave you a 3-digit lock and I said, open a lock, could you open a lock? And I said, no. He said, well, what if I told you the combination? I said, that would be awesome. And he said, if you work with me for the next year and you dedicate an hour to me each week to learn the things I'm going to teach you, I can show you how to build a very, very profitable restaurant. And he did. And the whole thing he taught me was this simple framework. I still have the cocktail napkin to this day in my office. And he wrote down 3 words. He wrote down people, product, and process. And he said, Donald, this is the secret to restaurant success. The problem is that you have the combination wrong. People, product, process. Most people start with product because everyone has a menu. And then everyone starts thinking, oh, you know what? I probably need some processes in place. I probably need a couple checklists. I might need a P&L. I might need to start looking at some numbers. People, man, I need to hire better people. I need to train a little bit better people. Remember this, hashtag write this down. People feeds process, process feeds people. What does that mean? Every month, someone will call me and say, Donald, I'm frustrated. I'll say, why are you frustrated? They say, my team's not following the checklist. And I'll say, what's wrong with the checklist? And they'll say, nothing. You gave me the checklist. All right. Well, if the process part is right, It's the people part, the culture part. People don't know why the checklist is important. They haven't bought into the culture. You don't have a culture of accountability. Right? And then every month I'll have someone call me and say, Donald, I'm frustrated. I'll say, why are you frustrated? Well, I went home this afternoon to go walk the dogs. I come back and everyone's just staying around on their phone, texting. They're, on Snapchat, TikTok. They're not doing any side work. And I'll say, do they have systems in place? They have accountability systems in place. They have time check. 11 o'clock do this, 12 o'clock do this, 1 o'clock do this. No, but they should know what to do. Or it's common sense. Remember this. Common sense is not common in the restaurant industry. People need processes. So people feeds process, process feeds people. When people and process are solid, then it will protect your product. So I always like to say that people and process, when they're bookend, will protect your brand. That's the product part. So many of you are focused on some of the things in this 3P framework, but not the right things in the right order. When you start doing the right things in the right order, the combination opens up. And it all starts with that people part. That people part is probably the most critical thing you can do and to work on. Because if you don't focus on that, I'm telling you, it doesn't really matter. Because everything else is like for naught, right? So what we want to do is we want to really focus in on getting the order right. And getting that order right is all about one major thing: people, product, and then process. Okay. That being said, the accelerator program, which we teach, has the most intricate, it probably is the most, it is the most comprehensive training program on the market today for restaurants that actually want to get unstuck and make more money, work less hours in the restaurant. People, product, process. Each stage has different workshops. In the people part, we got some strengths workshops about behavioral assessments. We got some culture workshops. We got some hiring workshops. We got some food cost workshops, menu workshops, of course, marketing machines, all about organic content. Then we get into the process part, restaurant tracks about systems, restaurant map or strat maps, all about strategic planning. And then, of course, we have the profit clinic, which is all about profitability and service. Today's kind of webinar, we're going to dig into a little bit of stuff that's in the profit clinic. Okay. We're going to talk about service models. One of the things we do at the very first module in the profit clinic is we break down what we call the guest experience straight line, and we talk about service. We talk about how to really instill a service of accountability, a service of hospitality, and really get your team all on board moving in the right direction. So what if every guest who walked through your door, just left raving about the service they experienced every single time? Wouldn't that be nice to take that off your plate, that you have to worry about, like, oh, I hope we get it right. I hope we don't make a mistake. I hope it's a good day. I don't get some bad reviews. I'm not saying you're not going to have a bad day, but what if you could almost like make sure that every single day, the majority of your restaurant's guests are going to have a raving experience? That is the goal of today's webinar. I want to give you the foundational elements of creating what we call service standards. To do that, we're going to have to kind of start off with a quote. I'm going to give you a great quote. The goal as a company is to have customer service that is not just the best, but legendary. Sam Walton, the man who built an empire around this whole experience, that service should not be just great or the best. It has to be legendary. It has to leave people wanting more. This is what we're going to talk about today. So if you want more money, focus on creating savage service standards. Not just good, not just okay. I'm talking about savage service standards, things that just make you stand out so far. Talk about this in the restaurant success pyramid. There's 4 levels of restaurant success. There's bad, good, great, and outstanding. The restaurants at the top level, outstanding restaurants, they stand out so far ahead of the competition. They don't have competition. That's what I want to get you to. I want you to get to this level where you are outstanding. Not good, not great, outstanding. You stand out so far ahead that you just blow everyone else away. You dominate your market, right? So setting the standards, right? High quality service every time. To do this, we're going to have to like really kind of take everything apart and put it back together. So that being said, running a restaurant is tough as hell. And you know this. It's not just about the food. It's about delivering an experience that your guests come back for again and again and again. And guess what? The experience starts and ends with one word: service. No one gives a damn if your food is Michelin star level, if your service sucks. So let's talk about setting standards that ensure that you deliver a high quality service every single time, because consistency isn't just important, it's everything. Write that down. Consistency is not just important, it is everything. It is. I would tell you the number one thing that makes or breaks the most successful restaurants from the average restaurants, the outstanding restaurants, the ones that make the most money, they're just consistent. Day in and day out. Consistency, consistency, consistency. Right. So let's talk about first, what does high quality service really mean? So high quality service isn't about like lip service or like, a fake smile just to get a bigger tip. High quality service is about creating a memorable experience for your guests where every interaction screams, we care about you. Your goal is to make every guest feel like they're the most important person in the room, no matter how busy or chaotic your restaurant gets. Here's the harsh truth. If you treat your guests like a burden, they're going to treat your business like one. Okay? Hashtag write that down. If you treat your guests like a burden, they're going to treat your business like a burden, and they're not going to come back often. Okay. High quality service is rooted into 4 pillars. We're going to explore these 4 pillars in depth. The 4 pillars are attentiveness, efficiency, professionalism, and authenticity. Right? Attentiveness, efficiency, professionalism, authenticity. I'm going to break them down each one for you. This is where you want to get your notepad out and start taking lots of notes. Attentiveness, be present or get the F out. What do I mean by that? Attentiveness is the backbone of great service. And let's get real. Guests can feel it. They feel it when your staff's just kind of going through the motion. If your team isn't fully engaged and present, you're missing a golden opportunity to stand out. Being present isn't just about being physically there. It's about locking into every detail that could elevate a guest experience from good to unforgettable. Remember, your guests didn't walk into your restaurant to be treated like an afterthought. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be catered to. When we say attentiveness, we're talking about this: anticipating needs before they become a problem. Right? That's the big thing I want you to understand. Attentiveness is anticipating needs before they become a problem. Does a guest's water glass need filling? Is the food taking longer than expected? Here's the thing. You want to say something before the guest realizes it. Right? Is the table celebrating a special occasion? Attentiveness means catching the details without having the guest ask. Write that down. Attentiveness is catching the details without the guest having to ask. It's about being proactive rather than reactive. I mean, think about this. How many times have you been to a restaurant where you had to wave down the server just to get a drink refill? I mean, it sucks. It really sucks. I mean, that's the kind of inattentive service that pisses guests off, and it guarantees that people will not come back. And you can forget about any kind of glowing review. Attentiveness is more than just mechanics. It's about reading the room. You need to catch the vibe of your guest. And, you got to catch them in the, if they're in the mood for conversations, then converse. If they want to be left alone and just kind of enjoy their meal, maybe they're having a date night, don't intrude. This is about being conscientious about what's going on. Right? Looking in the corner, is that table in the corner? Are they celebrating something special, or maybe just having a quiet business meeting? Every table has different dynamics, and it's your team's job to dial in and be acutely aware of the energy. Now, in our accelerator program, in the Profit Clinic, I have a workshop I show you. It's called Neuroselling. Neuroselling is a workshop I do, and I've done that workshop like 500 times. Neuroselling will show your team how to read the room, how to read nonverbals. It is a powerful workshop. And I'm just telling you right now, if you watch the neuroselling workshop in the Profit Clinic, and if you actually practice the tools in the neuroselling workshop, you can increase your sales 20% overnight. No bullshit. I've done it with 500 restaurants plus. It works. The tools in that thing are based on neuroscience, psychology, and human buying behavior. It is a powerful, powerful thing. And it all comes down to dialing into energy. So here's a little pro tip for you. Train your staff to develop what's known as guest radar. Okay. This level of attentiveness can't be scripted. Your staff needs to develop this kind of guest radar. That's that intuitive, almost kind of sixth sense that tells them when to engage and also when to give people space. There's nothing worse than a server who's, hovering like a helicopter, interrupting conversations to ask, is everything okay? There's a delicate balance between this, and it's actually, this balance is what separates average service from high quality service. You want to teach your team to pick up on body language and nonverbal cues. Write down these three numbers: 7, 38, 55. This is a communication model. 7% of how we communicate is the word we use. 38% is the tone we use, and 55% is nonverbal. It really is not what you say, it's how you say it. You want to teach your team how to read that 55%, that nonverbal stuff. And there's tons of workshops, tons of training tools I can give you to help your team dial in on this stuff. Okay. When you're dialed in on the nonverbals, you can tell, like, is someone having deep conversation? Maybe I'm going to hold off interrupting them. Are they looking around, like actively looking for something? You know how they start looking like for a server, they kind of have this inquisitive look, like, what's up? Or they give you that check symbol. Okay. That's your cue to swoop in. Hovering over a table is a rookie mistake. And that rookie mistake screams, I don't know what I'm doing. Right? And it drives guests crazy. People come to a restaurant to have an experience, not to be interrupted into the server's drama or life. Okay. At the same time, vanishing and doing the ghosting act is as equally infuriating. You got to train your team to find that sweet spot, being available without being overbearing. Because this is the bottom line. Attentiveness is about making the guest feel cared for without ever crossing the line into annoyance. And again, restaurant success is not rocket science, but it does take a sharp eye, consistent presence, and emotional intelligence to get this right. Okay. Efficiency, fast, but not in a hurry. So efficiency, we talk about efficiency, it's about mastering that balance between speed and accuracy. Anyone can rush through service, but speed without precision is a fast track to chaos. In the restaurant game, being fast isn't enough. Your team needs to be fast, and also they have to get it right every single time. Because nothing kills a guest experience faster than a server who's in a mad dash but it's constantly messing up orders or forgetting items or forgetting critical details. I mean, imagine this. Your guest order arrives in record time, but it's missing the sides. Or worse, it's the wrong dish altogether. Now, instead of impressing them with how fast you got the food out, you've created a mess that has to be fixed. That's not efficiency. That's rushing. And hashtag write this down. Rushing leads to mistakes. And that leads to pissed off guests. And what does that get you? Get you a bad review and a lost guest. Simple as that. Okay. We have a saying in special operations zones and pararescue teams. The best phrase I can tell you that will teach this for you is that slow is smooth, smooth is fast. You don't rush. You start slow and then you start building up momentum and speed as you get more comfortable with stuff, right? Efficiency isn't just about the pace of service, it's about the flow. Every element of your operations, from taking orders to delivering food to handling payments, should feel like it's a well-oiled machine. In that first module in the Profit Clinic, we have it's called the Guest Experience Straight Line. The Guest Experience Straight Line is I take you through every step of the guest experience journey. We break it down and we rebuild it to make an awesome, incredible guest experience. That's how you create a well-oiled machine. When things are efficient, I mean, they feel smooth, I mean, seamless, effortless. The guests don't even notice all the moving parts because everything just works so well naturally. And that's where we want to get to, right? The secret to having this happen is systems. Systems make the difference. So how do you ensure efficiency without compromising quality? Systems, systems, systems. You can have the most talented team in the world, but without proper systems, they're never going to reach their full potential. Systems create consistency. Hashtag write that shit down. Systems create consistency. They take the guesswork out of service and ensure everyone on the same page, from the kitchen to the service team. Everyone's on the same page when we have systems, we have standards, we have expectations. So how do we do this? All right. One of the biggest reasons staff struggle with efficiency is the lack of proper systems. So you need to think of your restaurant as a high performance engine, right? And every part has to be tuned to work in sync. This includes 3 parts: order taking, whether you're doing handwritten tickets or using a POS system. The order process should be clear, concise, and leave no room for error. When I used to run restaurants and we had just, handwritten, but this is big before POS systems, but everything was handwritten. We had standard ordering codes for items on the menu. So like, it was a meatloaf, it would be like ML meatloaf. So that way, when orders came back to the kitchen guys aren't like having to decide, what is this kitchen scratch? What does this mean? What do you want? It had standardized orders and standardized order codes for items on the menu, right? Or in a POS system, I'm training my team how to use the POS system. They're going over and getting used to where all the buttons are, where the workflow is, where are the modifiers, where all the extra stuff is. And then they have to be trained how to make sure I'm double checking everything for accuracy. Make sure we're communicating special requests to the kitchen clearly. Remember, speed does not mean sloppy. Details matter. Hashtag write that down. Details matter. Food delivery, right? The handoff from the kitchen to the table has to be seamless. Hot food, hot. Cold food, cold. These are basic, fundamental stuff. There should be no lag time between when a dish is ready when it hits the guest table. You want to use maybe food runners or assign specific team members to expedite the process during peak times. When I had my restaurants, the rule was everyone ran food, right? If there was food in the window, everyone ran food. If you had empty hands, you ran food to a table. That was the number one policy I had. No one ever came up to the window and says, not my table. No, what do you mean it's not your table? Do you have 2 hands? Yeah, then run to food. Right. And then, of course, you want to make sure we're streamlining the payment processing part. Don't leave your guests waiting to pay the bill. I mean, the moment they're done, they're ready to process the payment and they want to get out smoothly. They have things to do. Waiting 10 minutes for a check to arrive is a guaranteed way to sour what could have been a great meal and a great experience. So, pro tip. Leverage technology. One of the best ways to guarantee efficiency is to embrace technology. If your team's still kind of relying on outdated methods, scribbled notes, manual calculators in the wait station, you're leaving efficiency off on the table, okay? Point of sale systems are your best friends. They streamline everything from order entry to kitchen communication to payment processing. The more your team's trained to use the tech, the faster and more accurately they can handle tasks. But here's the thing. Technology is only as good as the people using it. So it's critical that you train your team not just know how to use the tools, but to be proficient and confident in using them, especially during peak hours. I've seen a lot of restaurants, they have like new service team member and they put them on the POS training for an hour. And then they throw them on the floor and expect them to be really, really great. No, it takes a long time to get really, really proficient. And you want to give them a kind of like, I like to have a training POS system set up where I just have a blank POS system set up where I have it set up in that way. I'm training the team over and over for hours and hours. And I'm giving them a list of I'll give them a list of items from a table. I'll have them put them in there, make sure the order's accurate and stuff like that. But you want to train your team. Hashtag, write this down. How you train your team is how your team will perform. It's pretty simple. Okay. And then what we want to do is always prepare for those peak times, right? When I prepare for peak times, it has to be like second nature. Peak hours, this is where efficiency gets really, really tested. When the kitchen's slammed, the floor is packed, can your team deliver fast, accurate service? If the answer is no, you got a problem. All right. Efficient service during slow times is super easy. Efficient service when your restaurant's bursting at the seams is what separates the amateurs from the pros. So how do you do that? Number one, anticipate the rush. Know your busy times, plan ahead, talk to your team. Remember, all business problems are people problems. All people problems are communication problems. I will tell my team, hey, don't forget, guys, 6 o'clock, we got a little push on the books. We got a couple big tables coming in. Everyone get ready. It's 5:45. Got a big rush coming at 6 o'clock. Make sure you're stocked up, ready to go. It's where you have to anticipate and communicate the rushes, right? This means I'm always just telling them, hey, are we well stocked up? Are we staffed up? Everybody ready? Everybody got their game face on? Having systems in place, make sure I ensure a super smooth flow. That's where I have line checks for the kitchen. I have par lists with pars on there, not just prep lists, but pars. So you know how much to prep. Everyone has line checks. Everyone has side worksheets. Everyone has running side worksheets. This is where we get stuff going in the right direction. Number two, you always want to make sure you cross-train your staff. The more roles your team can handle, the more flexible and efficient your operation becomes, right? If your servers can help with food running, or your bartender's going to help out clearing tables or resetting tables, you can handle a lot during a peak time without missing a beat. And then make sure you're streamlining your communications. Clear, concise communication is the key to efficiency. Your team should be able to relay information quickly without a lot of back and forth. Whether it's calling out orders, handling guest requests, communicating to the kitchen, it needs to be quick, clean, uncluttered. Here's the thing. Efficiency is not about rushing. It's about being fast without compromising quality. It's about having systems that allow your team to execute flawlessly, even under pressure. Because here's the thing. When you nail efficiency, I mean, your guest experience feels effortless. It's smooth. It's seamless, right? And remember, no excuses, no delays. Your guests don't care. Your guests don't care about the reasons why something took longer than expected. What they care about is results. So if you want to deliver a high quality experience, a high quality service experience every single time, you need to make sure efficiency is a priority from the moment the guest walks in to the moment they leave, right? So next time you're at your restaurant, here's what I want you to ask yourself. Write this question down. Is my team operating like a well-oiled machine, or are we constantly playing catch up? If you feel like you're constantly playing catch up, then it's time to revisit your systems. It's time to get your training in place, train your team more, and ensure that efficiency just isn't a goal. Efficiency has to become your standard, right? That's pillar number 2. Pillar number 3, professionalism. No room for mediocrity. Oh, I hate mediocrity. I'm allergic to mediocrity. It just drives me crazy. In the world of professional, what separates the thriving restaurants from the ones scraping by? Professionalism isn't about robotic smiles, canned phrases. It's about creating an environment, an atmosphere where excellence is the standard, not the exception. Write that down. Excellence has to become the standard, not the exception. It's about giving your guests an experience that not only meets their you don't want to meet their expectations, you want to exceed their expectations. Every time they walk through the door, you want to have this goal of, I need to exceed their expectations, not meet expectations. Anything less than exceeding expectations is mediocrity. And in this business, mediocrity is a slow death sentence. Someone asked me, I did an interview with like Forbes magazine, and the reporter asked me, do you think there's too many restaurants in the world? I said, no, I think there's too many mediocre restaurants in the world. That's the problem. Mediocrity is the standard. If you look out in the market, 80% of restaurants in your market right now, 20% are bad. That means they're losing money or barely breaking even. 60% are just good. That means they're average. So you take that 60 and 20, that's 80%. 80% of the restaurants in your market are mediocre. It's not hard to stand out in a crowd if you just put a little energy and effort into it. So what exactly does professionalism look like? Well, let's break it down. Professionalism starts with the basics. How your staff dresses, how they communicate, how they carry themselves. And then it goes a little deeper than that too. It's about having an attitude of respect. Hashtag that shit down. Professionalism is having an attitude of respect for your guest, for themselves, for the team, for the product, for your property, for your craft. It's about consistency. It's about accountability. It's about never cutting corners, no matter how tempting it is when it gets hectic. And we've all been there. I've been there too. Don't worry. Oh, it gets really busy. It's so easy just to cut that corner. But professionals don't cut corners, right? So presentation matters. You know, you've heard that saying, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Well, in the restaurant industry, presentation is everything. This means your staff needs to look the part, clean uniforms, well-groomed, ready to go. Also goes for your restaurant. It needs to be spotless, organized, welcoming. I mean, if your guests walk in and see a disheveled staff, a messy environment, the perception is that your entire operation is a mess too, right? And it's just not about it's not just about appearances too. Professionalism is also about, how does your team show up mentally? Are they focused? Are they alert? Are they ready to provide top tier service? Or are they just kind of going through the motions? Are they half checked out? Are they just waiting for their shift to end? Are they looking at the clock saying, oh, you only got an hour left? If your team's like this, I'm telling you right now, it's your culture. It's one of the reasons in the accelerator program, we focus a lot, especially at first, on culture, because without the right culture, you're never going to be able to maintain high levels of excellence. You need that culture of accountability, right? Hashtag write this down. Half-assed effort equals half-assed results. If you tolerate laziness or sloppiness in your restaurant, that's exactly what your guests get, right? And then number two, communication is key. Professionalism also means, also shows up in how your staff communicates with guests. Here's the thing. It's not about talking down to people, right? Or about being overly familiar. It's about striking that kind of really good balance between being, respectful, being helpful, being attentive, without coming across as stuffy or fake. Here's a tip I want you to work on. Train your team to speak with confidence. When a server knows the menu inside and out, understands the features, can make recommendations without hesitation, their confidence shines through, right? Confidence breeds trust, and trust turns first-time guests into loyal regulars. Hashtag write that down. Confidence breeds trust, and trust turns first-time guests into raving fans. And another thing, we talked about this before with that number, remember 738-55, that 38%, tone matters, right? It's how you say it. I mean, a simple question like, how's everything, can easily be taken like, how's everything? How's everything? How is everything? How's everything? Hey, how's everything? Right? Tone, same words. Tone really, really changes everything. Train your team to be present and engage, and they have to be engaged in every interaction. That means they have to be focused. Okay. Anytime they're interacting with a guest, they have to be present. One of the things you want to practice with your team is being present. And the thing you want to start doing from this day forward is make this decree: mediocrity has no place in your restaurant. Right? Here is the harsh reality. Mediocrity spreads like a virus. If you allow one person on your team to phone it in, that attitude will infect the entire operation. Before you know it, mediocrity becomes a norm. And that's when you start losing guests, you start losing money, you start damaging your reputation. So you want to know the secret? Here's the secret. Hashtag write this down. Your team mirrors your energy. So if you as a leader, if you don't have high standards, if you don't show up fully engaged, you don't show up with lots of energy, ready to really rock and roll, don't expect your team to show up either. Right? This is not, leadership is not go and do it, and I'm going to sit in the office and watch Netflix. Leadership is about being a leader, stepping up and being the fucking leader, not sitting there being a boss and barking orders. Right? Managers are dead. I hate the word manager. Why? Because a manager manages a shift, where a leader leads the vision. A leader's out front leading. This means that you must model professionalism in everything you do. You say you're going to be there at 10, be there at 10. Right? Stay engaged. When you're listening, when you're talking to team members, be active. Be an active listener. Don't be on your phone. Yeah, yeah. I mean, how would it be if I'm sitting here talking to you and I'm on my phone? Yeah, okay. Yeah, that sounds, oh, yeah, that sounds good. Okay, perfect. Yeah, cool. Yeah, all right, awesome. I'm not engaged. Put your phone away. Be present. Stay engaged. Never settle for good enough. When you set the tone for being the example of the standards, your team will follow, because your team follows more what you do than what you say. All right. If you don't tolerate mediocrity, they won't tolerate mediocrity either. And that comes down to this. You have to hold your team accountable. Accountability is the backbone of professionalism. You can't set high standards and let people get away with falling short. If you don't hold people accountable, they'll assume the standards don't really matter. We call this silent approval. And once that happens, I mean, your culture of professionalism is gone. It's dead. Every single member of your team needs to understand there are non-negotiables when it comes to professionalism. This means they have to show up on time, ready for work. They have to maintain a clean, polished appearance. They have to know the menu and the features like the back of their hand. They have to communicate with respect and confidence. They have to handle guest complaints with grace and urgency. If someone isn't hitting these marks, you need to call it out immediately. Do not let it slide. Do not make excuses for them. I love it when I get on a call with a restaurant owner and they start giving me excuses why their team's not performing at the level they want to. Right? We can rationalize the shit out of anything. But here's the thing. Excuses don't get you results. Action gets you results. Right? The second you start tolerating mediocrity, you are making a broadcast to the team that's okay to cut corners. And here's the thing. When people start cutting corners, your guest experience will suffer big time. So how do we get this going in the right direction? Professionalism is a culture, not a policy. Professionalism isn't something that you just slap on a list of rules and expect everyone to follow. It's not like, you have your rules, your policies, and you hand out your employee handbook when people start and you say, we must be professionalism all the time. No, professionalism is a culture. It's something you build and nurture every single day. If you want your restaurant to run like a high performance machine, you need to create a culture where professionalism is baked into everything you do. It's not optional, it's expected. How do we do that? That means hiring people who get it. This talks about getting the right people in the team, not just a warm body to fill a schedule shift, getting the right person on the team in the right spot. People take pride in their work, right? People who get it take pride in their work, and they understand that professionalism isn't just about a paycheck. It's about being the best at what they do. It also means constantly training your team to uphold these standards, even when it's hard, even when they're tired, even when the place is slammed. Right? Professionalism does not have a rest period. Professionalism is a 24/7 thing. And to do that, I need you to do this in yourself. No tolerance for excuses. Right? Excuses breed mediocrity, and this starts with you. Right? If your team's constantly making excuses for why they didn't deliver a great guest experience, oh, we were short-staffed. Oh, Donald, we were short-staffed. Oh, the kitchen was backed up. Oh, that guest was rude. When they have excuses, you're allowing them to dodge accountability. Professionalism always means delivering high-quality service no matter what, period. No one gives a damn about your problems behind the scene. No one gives a damn that your goldfish died. No one gives a damn that you had a flat tire this morning. No one cares that you had 2 servers call in sick. Guests are paying for a great experience, and it's your job to make sure to get it regardless of what's happening in the kitchen, what's happening as far as who called in sick, doesn't matter. Professionalism isn't just about looking the part or speaking politely. It's about setting and maintaining high standards in every aspect of your service. It's about respecting your guest, your team, and your business enough never to settle for anything less than excellence. Hashtag write this down. Mediocrity has no place in your restaurant. I want you to put it in the first person. Mediocrity has no place in my restaurant. Write that down. Say it to yourself 50 times a day. Mediocrity has no place in my restaurant. Say it until you believe it. Say it over and over and over again, because I'm telling you, once you let mediocrity in, it's hard. It's hard to get rid of it. And then you have to step up and lead by example. You have to hold your team accountable. You have to build a culture where professionalism isn't the goal, it's the standard. If you want to make it to the top of this industry and stay there and make the most amount of money, I'm talking like 18, 20, 22% or even higher profitability, you can't be good. You have to be legendary. And the final pillar is authenticity. Drop the BS, right? Authenticity is about realness. It's about showing up as who you are and creating a vibe in your restaurant where the guests feel like they're not just another seat or a table, that they're actually valued. Authenticity comes through in every interaction. It comes in from the way your staff treats your guest, how they greet guests, how they handle requests, how they take orders, how they handle problems, how they handle complaints. And let's be clear, being authentic doesn't mean unprofessional. It means being genuine. Guests don't want servers to follow some pre-rehearsed script or give them cookie cutter lines without being sincere. In the neuroselling workshop, I'll actually give you some scripts, but I'll tell everyone with fair warning, scripts don't work if they're not practiced and they're sincere. Right? So I don't mind really good scripts, but you have to practice and do role playing with your team. Right? Your team has to be trained to deliver the scripts with just like they're reading, like they've practiced lines in a movie and it comes across as authentic. Actors in movies are just basically reciting lines that they learned, but they say it with intensity and authority and confidence that comes across as you believe what they're saying. Same thing. I don't mind scripts if they're done right. fast, the corporate chains, Applebee's, all these big chains, they just totally ruin scripts because they just basically teach people to regurgitate stuff and there's no feeling behind it. Hi, welcome to Applebee's. Would you like to start off with an appetizer or a pitcher of margaritas? I mean, there's no enthusiasm to it, right? It comes across as monotone, boring, lazy, and it does nothing to build rapport. If you're going to use a script, you need to role play it until it becomes just they can do it without even thinking about it. Okay. And I'll give you some great scripts inside the Profit Clinic, inside the Neurosewing Workshop. Okay. And then 2, being authenticity means caring beyond the tip. And this is a hard thing to get across to your team sometimes. Guests can tell, I'm sure you can tell when you go to a restaurant, you can tell when the team is being nice just because they're hoping for a bigger tip. But when your team genuinely cares about giving the guest a great experience, that care actually shines through. Authentic service is more than a transaction. Write that down. Authentic service is more than a transaction. It's about making the guests feel like they matter. Train your team for ways to go above and beyond. Visit somebody's birthday. Don't just drop a candle and a cake and call it a day. Get the whole team involved. Hand out a birthday card. Have a card signed by the whole team. Go above and beyond. The number one thing I want you to ask yourself is, how can you plus it? How can you make it better? In the guest experience straight line in the Profit Clinic, I take every step of the guest experience and I give you lots of different tools and tips on how to plus every single step of the guest experience straight line. Okay. Authentic service is about doing the small things that make people feel special. So what does authenticity actually look like? Well, it's about, again, realness. It's about showing up as you are and creating that vibe. Okay, remember, I don't want them just to be another seat. All right. I want them to be valued. Right? This is where you have to be really, really genuine. You have to be genuine in everything you do. People want a real connection. Now, does this mean that the server has to become best friends with their guests? No. But it does mean they should care enough to ask thoughtful questions. They should listen to the answers and offer suggestions that make the guest experience unique. That's how authenticity comes across. Right? They have to start developing what known as active listening skills. And these are all things that could be taught. Okay. You got to develop this authenticity. You have to. And again, I'm going to go right back to where we talked about before. All right. How do you think we get professionalism and authenticity? We get it through one thing: culture. Culture drives authenticity. If your team doesn't feel authentic, that's on you. Authenticity starts with the culture you create in your restaurant. So if you're treating your team like disposable cogs in a machine, don't expect them to turn around and treat your guests with genuine care. Culture drives behavior. Write that shit down. Culture drives behavior. If you want your team to be authentic, to be engaged, you need to create a culture that fosters that kind of energy. How do we do that? 3 things. Number 1, create a safe environment for realness. If you want your team to serve with heart, and we would say service with heart or hospitality with heart, they need to feel safe enough to bring their true self to work. This means creating an environment or a culture where your staff can be themselves without fear of being judged or reprimanded for not being professional enough. All right. Now, encourage your team to bring their personalities to the table. Some of your staff might be funny. Some people might be a little more reserved and thoughtful. Let them kind of express themselves a little bit through their interactions with the guests. Guests appreciate the service team when they're real and not robots. Okay. And number 2, of course, lead by example. Authenticity starts with you. It starts at the top. I have this saying, and you want to write this down: culture flows down, it does not flow up. Culture starts with you. if you're the leader and you're putting on a front, you're wearing a mask, you're being fake, how do you expect your team to be genuine with guests? You want to model the behavior you want your team to see. You want to engage with your team the way you want them to engage with your guest. You want to be approachable. You want to be real. You want to show that you care about their well-being. When your team sees you leading with authenticity, they're more likely to do the same because people tend to mimic the actions of leaders. So if your energy's fake, if you act like you care, but you really don't care, that energy is going to come across to them, and then they're going to have the same thing. Remember, you have to set the tone. And you set the tone by being honest, being transparent, being real with your team, and you can just watch as the energy ripples out into the guest experience. Culture is the driver here. Culture is all about energy, and energy is everything. And then the number one thing you want to do more than ever is you want to train your team to serve with heart. All right. It's one thing to talk about authenticity, but you need to give your team the tools and training to deliver it. There's three things we talk about in coaching. Coaching, we always do three things. We always do TTC, right? TTC, I always give you the tools. I give you the training on how to use the tool. And then I give you coaching for when you stop using the tool properly, which everyone does, all right? You want to be the same way. You want to give your team the tools, training, and coaching to make authentic service happen, because it doesn't happen by itself. It's something you have to cultivate and train for. How do you do that? Teach emotional intelligence. Authenticity isn't just about what you say. It's knowing about when and how to say it. This is called emotional intelligence. You got to train your team to read the room, pick up on social cues, adjust their service accordingly. Some guests love to chat. Other people like to have more of a low-key interaction. Teach your team to tune into those signals and act accordingly. Authentic service is about making the guests feel comfortable, not bombarding them with fake enthusiasm. Number two, empower your team to make decisions. Nothing kills authenticity faster than having to run to a manager for approval every 5 minutes. You want to empower your team to make decisions under, especially when it comes to solving guest problems. If a guest isn't happy with something, your team should be, they should feel very comfortable about taking steps to fix it immediately without needing to check with anybody. When you give your team the authority to handle things on their own, you're telling them that you trust their judgment, and that trust leads to more genuine interaction with the guest. It shows that they're not there just to follow orders, but they're there to provide real solutions. And then three, you want to celebrate the wins with your team. When a guest leaves a glowing review or mentions how great the service was, celebrate with your team. Talk about it at pre-shift. Blow them up on social media. Hey, we had a great 5-star review. Johnny was the server. Johnny's one of my rock stars. I really appreciate him going the extra mile. Celebrate your team. Praise in public, coach in private. Let your team know that authentic approach is not only noticed, but it's appreciated. Positive reinforcement goes a long way in building the culture of care. Okay. The more your team feels valued for being themselves, the more likely they're going to show up authentically. Right. At the end of the day, authenticity is really what sets restaurants apart. Right. Guests want real. They want meaningful interactions with people who actually care about their experience, not forced smiles and generic service. You want to create a culture that encourages your team to drop the act, serve with heart, and build the kind of loyalty that money can't buy. If you want to really, really create lasting impressions, stop training your team to be robots. Train them to be themselves. Train them to be authentic. Train them to care. Train them to connect with your guest on a real level. That is what keeps people coming back. All right. How to set the standards and stick to them. Let's talk about this. All right. So you might be thinking, hey, Donald, this sounds all really, really great, but how do I make this thing happen every time, every single day? Well, the answer is simple, right? Simple, but not easy. Okay. What do I mean by that? It's simple in practice, the theory, but practicing it is going to take some commitment on your end. Set standards and don't budge. Right? Standards aren't just guidelines for your staff to follow. They are the non-negotiable foundation of your restaurant service. In the accelerator program, we have a workshop called the Know Why Workshop. It's the culture workshop. In the culture workshop, you will have this exercise where you define your non-negotiables. You make a list of all your non-negotiables. And this is the biggest thing. Clarity is power, right? You can't expect your team to meet your standards if they don't know what the standards are. So you need to get crystal clear on your non-negotiables that define your restaurant service. Think about every point of interaction with your guest and decide what's the minimum expectations. And these expectations should be specific, they should be measurable, and they should be visible for the team. Let me give you an example. Every guest should be greeted within 30 seconds of being seated. Drinks should be refilled within 2 minutes of reaching half empty. Food should be delivered within 15 minutes of the order being placed. That's a good example. That's specific, measurable, and visible standards. Remember, it's not enough just to have these standards in your head. This is where most restaurant owners go sideways. You have the standards in your head, but you haven't written them down and explained them to your team. You got to write them down, and you have to make them part of your restaurant's culture. Your team needs to see these standards every day. So you want to post them where everyone can see them, everyone can reference them in the break room and training materials, in training modules, even on any kind of trained, shared platform you have. You have group chats, any kind of, community thing, right? Now, when I'm doing standards, a lot of times I like to break my standards down into different categories. Like I might have one for guest interaction. I might have some standards for table service, might have standards for cleanliness. I might have standards for food, might have standards for communication. Each category should have its own non-negotiables. And then you want to make sure every team member from the service team to the culinary team knows exactly what's expected of them. You heard me say this line earlier. All business problems are people problems. All people problems are communication problems. All communication problems are lack of clarity of expectations, right? That's the biggest problem right there. And then 2, you got to train like you mean it. Setting the standards is step 1. Next step is make sure your team understands them and can execute them flawlessly. This is where most restaurants drop the ball, right? You cannot expect high quality service without consistent training. You should be training every single day. One boring training session and like the beginning of their onboarding is not going to cut it. You need to build a training program that teaches these standards, but also reinforces them every single day. On-the-job coaching is key. Your team should be committed to what's known as the 1% mindset. 1%, we're constantly getting better every day. 1% better today than we were yesterday. Constantly learning, constantly improving, constantly being reminded of what's expected. And then start integrating training into your daily pre-shift. Review maybe 1 or 2 core standards every day and make sure your team understands how to implement them in real time. Role playing is the most powerful tool you should be doing in your restaurants. And I would tell you right now, 90% of restaurants, 95% of restaurants do not role play. Role playing is the most powerful training tool you can have if you do it properly. Okay. This is where you handle role playing is great for practicing guest complaints, from greeting guests, all kinds of stuff. It's great. And here's the thing you want to remember, hashtag write this down. Training isn't just for new hires. All your veteran employee team members need to be trained too, because even the best team members get complacent over time. You have to have regular refresher courses. That's why you're always training. We call it the Stay Trim model. Stay Trim is the acronym for TRIM. Always be training, always be recruiting, always be improving, always be marketing. Stay trim every single day. Okay. You got to have that stuff. You got to have that 70-20-10 training program in place, 70% shadow training, 20% active feedback coaching, 10% online learning where they can go in and watch everything. And then number 3, you got to hold everyone accountable. Now, you can have the best standards in the world, but if no one's being held accountable, it doesn't mean shit. This is where most restaurant owners and leaders fail. You need to be ruthless when it comes to holding your team accountable for meeting the standards you set. I mean, it's your standard. You set the standard, you have to be ruthless in holding them accountable to it. Right? When you start letting things slide, more things slide. This is how mediocrity creeps into your restaurant. You turned an eye on one thing that you didn't think was a big deal. Everything's a big deal. And then next thing you know, mediocrity started creeping in. Right? Don't wait for the end of the shift. Right? Address it in the moment. Let them know what they need to change. Right? And then here's the thing I highly recommend. Develop a system for documenting when standards are being met. This could be a conversation confirmation form, some kind of write-up form, but you got to have some kind of form where you can track issues as they arise, because you're going to see patterns arise in all this stuff. Right? Is one team member constantly missing the mark? Can I address it with additional training, or maybe I need more serious disciplinary action? Right? And here's the thing. Don't just focus on the negative. If someone's crushing it and exceeding expectations, let them know that too. Positive reinforcement is it's just as important as accountability. Right? This encourages your team to stay on top of their A game. And then 4, you got to have that feedback loop. You want to know how you're really doing? Ask your guests. One of the best ways to do that is have some kind of feedback loop. Send out some surveys. Ask for, look at your online reviews. Sometimes do maybe a focus group and send out a small list, a small survey to some of your VIPs, getting feedback from them. Maybe if you know them really well, just having a conversation with them at the restaurant. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I know you come to the restaurant a lot. Hey, you got a couple minutes? I just want to sit down and ask you some questions about what can we do to make things better. Right? 3 questions you ask yourself all the time. What's working? What's not working? How can we make it better? Feedback is a gift. And the worst thing you can do is ignore it. Okay? Consistency is king. Again, remember, setting the standards is easy. Sticking to them is a real challenge. Consistency in service is what separates the great restaurants from the average ones. It's the difference between that one-time visit and that loyal, raving fan who keeps coming back over and over and brings all their friends, all their family with them. If you want to be the best in this business, you need to start setting your standards higher than they are right now, and you have to refuse to compromise. From defining your non-negotiables, training like a pro, holding your team accountable, gathering feedback, it's all about building a system that guarantees high-quality service every single time. Remember, half-ass efforts equaled half-ass results. Do not let mediocrity take root in your restaurant. Get serious about your standards and make sure your team delivers on them every single day. Okay. High quality service, right, isn't just about making guests happy in the moment. It's about creating those long-term connections, about building that repeat business, higher profits, word of mouth marketing. If you want your restaurant to grow, you got to get guests coming back consistently. And when you get them coming back consistently, they do a lot of the marketing for you. But here's the thing. Can't deliver high quality service without setting the standards higher than they are now, holding yourself and holding your team accountable every single day. Now, before we leave, allow me to explain to you the difference between like this webinar training that we do and what restaurant coaching really is. All right. And I kind of describe coaching programs a lot like flying a plane at different altitudes, each offering a varying degree of details, focus, and impact. So 40,000 foot, that's like books, like you buy Your Restaurant Sucks books, Savage Restaurant Success, listen to my podcast, watch some of my YouTube videos. This is where you're getting like a broad view. It's a great way to understand general concepts, theories, ideas, but the information is really, really high level. All right. You can see the big picture, but you're not close enough to get the finer detail. After that, we come down a little bit lower. It's what we call the 30,000 foot view. This is like webinars, like what you guys are on right now. This brings you closer to the ground, offering viable tactics and strategies that you can actually take and implement. Now, again, you're still not really getting that practical stuff that you can put into really deep action. And you might be able to implement some of the stuff you learn on a webinar if you really have great discipline and great habits, which I'll be honest with you, most restaurant owners don't have really great discipline or great habits. That's why you're in the result. That's where you are, right? Your restaurant's a reflection of your habits. I would say if your restaurant's running smooth and you're making a lot of money, you got more good habits than bad habits. If your restaurant's bleeding out money or not making at least 12% profit, you got some bad habits that have to be fixed, right? And after that 30,000 foot view, now we get to that 10,000 foot view. This is like my mastermind groups. Mastermind groups, you're getting a little more serious. This allows you to see the train a little more clearly. You have some group accountability. You have access to more tools. You can tackle more complex problems. You're still above the fray, but you're much closer, to actionable insights. And then finally, the tarmac. The tarmac is what we call like one-on-one coaching. This is what the accelerator is. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you're on the ground. You're fully immersed in your own unique challenges. This is where your coach can actually guide you depending on what unique challenges you're facing with your restaurant, your market, what's going on. Has the maximum accountability. You get the full arsenal of tools for your toolkit. And this is also where you see the most tangible and fastest results. Okay. I always say, and then that there's actually another level too, which we call immersion training or immersion programs. Immersion programs is where you basically get out of your restaurant for 3 to 5 days and you have like really intensive coaching. This is like, I call this like being strapped onto a high-speed jet, right? This is where you get out of your restaurant and all you're doing for like 2, 3, 5 days is just focused on learning everything you can to make yourself a better operator. This level of coaching is not for the faint. It is a transformative experience, and that it demands everything you got, but also delivers the highest amount of impact. So a good coaching program should integrate all 4 levels. There should be some kind of on-demand learning where you can go and watch modules on your own. There should be some kind of group calls, like webinars, group training coaching sessions. You should have some accountability with a one-on-one coach. And you should have some kind of immersive training where you get out of your restaurant, some like workshops that get you out of your restaurant where you're not getting distracted and you just focus for like 2 to 3 days on pure restaurant growth. All right. Now, for the last 14 years, my coaching programs have helped over 2,900 restaurants. And the reason being is that coaching provides 2 critical elements: accountability and new tools. Right now, you can take the stuff you learn on the webinar, and they're great. It's great tools. You're going to get a lot. You got a lot of gold nuggets today. But if you want accountability to make those happen, and also tools on how to implement those things, you want to think about coaching, because coaching is like getting a personal trainer. I know what to do at the gym, but I get better results when I have a trainer, because he tells me when I'm like doing it wrong, my form's wrong. He pushes me to do an extra rep. It's really amazing. All right. That's why coaching is so powerful. I still have coaches to this day. I have a business coach. I have a marketing coach. I have a mindset coach. I have a fitness coach. I have a voice coach. I have coaches for everything. Why? Because coaching makes me better and it also gives me results faster. All right. I've tried it without coaching, and I always found that, you get faster when you have a coach in your corner. Okay. Because you have someone to bounce ideas off of too. Someone asked one of my clients one time, "What's coaching like with Donald?" And he kind of described it like this. I thought it was a funny quote. What's coaching like with Donald? It's like running your restaurant on rocket fuel. So if you want to go from regular gas to rocket fuel for your restaurant, the accelerator program is the rocket fuel. It was the fastest way to get from where you are to where you want to be. Guaranteed. Right? You're going to get all kinds of tools in your toolkit. You're going to get all kinds of workshops. You're going to get all kinds of modules. You get all kinds of downloads. You're going to get access to everything you need to run a highly profitable restaurant. All the tools in the accelerator program, I will tell you right now, will get you to an 18% profit margin if you follow the roadmap. Now, if you go in here and just kind of dabble around and do a few things, kind of hit and miss, don't show up for your coaching calls, don't do this and that, yeah, you're not going to get the results. But if you follow the system works. I mean, it's worked for 2,900 restaurants, and there's a reason for it. The system works when you work the system, right? And then also get a one-on-one coaching call with one of my certified restaurant coaches. It's over 200 hours of video. 200 hours of video at your fingertips that you can watch anytime you want, plus 380 downloads. I'm not going to hard sell it. If you want to learn about this, just speak to someone on the restaurant growth team, and they can easily get you signed up for it. I know they got some really great promos right now. They got some really great deals. They got financing available. Just speak to Luke or someone on the restaurant growth team, and they'll be more than happy to help you out about that. Does anybody have any questions for today? Any questions?